The kiss wasn't supposed to mean anything. Just 10 seconds of revenge against a cheating ex in a crowded Manhattan club. But when Aria Bennett grabbed a stranger at the bar and pulled him into that kiss, she didn't know she was sealing a deal with the most dangerous man in the city. Adrian Moretti doesn't do favors. He doesn't do messy. And he definitely doesn't do relationships. But something about that kiss changed the rules. Now, her ex wants her back. A fake boyfriend arrangement is spinning out of control, and Aria is about to learn that some strangers should stay strangers. If you want to see how far this story goes, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see where you're watching from. Now let's dive in. The bass rattled through Aria's chest like a second heartbeat, heavy and relentless. She stood near the edge of the VIP section at Onyx, one of those Manhattan clubs where the velvet ropes meant something and the champagne cost more than her rent. The lights strobed in lazy arcs across the crowd, blue, then gold, then a deep red that made everyone look either beautiful or dangerous. Right now, Luca Vance looked like both. He was leaning back on the curved leather sofa, one arm draped over a blonde, in a dress so tight it might as well have been painted on. His other hand rested on the thigh of a brunette who was whispering something in his ear, her lips brushing against his jaw. He laughed, that low, arrogant sound Aria had once thought was charming, and tilted his head back like he owned the room. He didn't see her yet. Aria's fingers tightened around the stem of her champagne glass. She'd been standing there for 2 full minutes, frozen somewhere between disbelief and rage, watching her boyfriend of 8 months treat her like she didn't exist. She texted him an hour ago. "Where are you?" He'd said he was working late, said he had a client dinner, said a lot of things apparently that weren't true. The blonde kissed his neck. Luca's hand slid higher on the brunette's leg. Aria's stomach twisted, but not the way she expected. She wasn't sad. She wasn't heartbroken. She was furious. She turned on her heel and walked straight to the bar, her heels clicking against the polished concrete floor with a sharpness that felt satisfying. The bartender glanced up, a guy with slicked back hair and a vest that looked expensive, and she slid onto a stool, setting her glass down harder than necessary. "Whiskey," she said. "Neat. And make it something that doesn't taste like I'm trying to impress anyone." The bartender smirked. "Rough night?" "Getting there?" He poured her a double of something amber and smoky, and she downed half of it in one go. It burned, but in a good way. A clarifying way. She set the glass down and exhaled slowly, her mind spinning. 8 months. 8 months of dates and late-night conversations and planning a weekend trip to the Hamptons that he'd canceled twice. 8 months of her rearranging her schedule, her life, her priorities, while he what? Played her? Used her as a placeholder until something better walked by? She glanced back toward the VIP section. Luca was still there, still laughing, still acting like the center of the universe. The blonde was on his lap now. Aria's jaw tightened. "Another?" the bartender asked. She shook her head. "No, I need to do something stupid. That's my specialty. What are we talking? Drunk text? Karaoke? Public declaration of, 'I need someone to kiss me.'" The bartender blinked. "Come again?" Aria turned on the stool, scanning the bar. It was crowded, packed with the kind of people who thought a Tuesday night at Onyx was just another weeknight. Models, finance bros, trust fund kids. Everyone looked like they were trying too hard or not trying at all. And then she saw him. He was sitting 3 stools down, alone, one hand resting on a glass of something clear. Vodka, maybe, or gin. He wasn't looking at his phone, wasn't talking to anyone, just sitting there, still and composed, like the noise and chaos around him didn't exist. He was older than most of the crowd. Mid-30s, maybe. Dark hair, sharp jawline, a suit that fit like it had been tailored specifically for his frame. He looked expensive, controlled, the kind of man who didn't need to shout to be heard. And he looked bored. Aria stood up. Her heart was pounding now, adrenaline sharpening everything into focus. She walked over, her heels clicking in rhythm, and stopped right in front of him. He looked up. His eyes were dark, almost black in the low light, and they locked onto hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. He didn't smile, didn't frown, just waited. "I need a favor," Aria said. His gaze flicked down to her hand, still holding the whiskey glass, then back to her face. I don't do favors. You haven't heard what it is yet. Doesn't matter. She leaned in, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something clean and understated, nothing flashy. I need you to kiss me. For a moment he didn't move, didn't blink. Then slowly, one corner of his mouth lifted. Not quite a smile, more like acknowledgement of something absurd. Why? Because my boyfriend is over there, she said, nodding toward the VIP section, with his tongue down someone else's throat, and I want him to see me not give a damn. The man's gaze shifted, just for a second, toward Luca, then back to her. So this is revenge. This is closure. Same thing. Maybe, Arya straightened, squaring her shoulders. Look, if you're not interested, just say so. I'll find someone else. She started to turn, but his hand caught her wrist. Not hard, just enough to stop her. I didn't say no. She looked down at his hand, then back up at his face. His expression hadn't changed, but there was something in his eyes now, something sharp and calculating, like he was measuring her, deciding. What's your name? He asked. Arya. Arya. He said it slowly, like he was testing the weight of it. Then he let go of her wrist and stood. He was taller than she'd expected, at least 6'2", broad-shouldered, with the kind of presence that made people step out of his way without realizing they were doing it. He looked down at her, his expression unreadable. This is a bad idea. Probably. You're going to regret it. Maybe. He tilted his head slightly, studying her. Then he reached out, his hand settling on her waist with a firmness that sent a jolt through her. Then let's make it count, he said. And he kissed her. It wasn't soft, wasn't tentative. His mouth was on hers with a kind of certainty that left no room for hesitation, his hand sliding to the small of her back and pulling her closer. Arya's breath hitched, her hands coming up instinctively to his chest, and for a second she forgot why she was doing this. Forgot about Luca, forgot about the crowd, forgot about everything except the way the stranger kissed like he meant it. When he pulled back, his eyes were still on hers, dark and unreadable. That work for you? He asked. Arya blinked, her pulse racing. She turned her head just enough to see the VIP section. Luca was staring. The blonde was still on his lap, but he wasn't looking at her anymore. He was looking at Arya, his jaw tight, his eyes locked onto the man standing beside her. Yeah, Arya said quietly. That works. The man stepped back, his hand falling away from her waist. He picked up his drink, finished it in one swallow, and set the glass down on the bar. Good luck with that, he said, and started to walk away. Wait, Arya called after him. He stopped, glancing back over his shoulder. What's your name? He looked at her for a long moment, like he was deciding whether to answer. Then he said, Adrian. And he walked out. Oh, Arya didn't move for a full 10 seconds. She just stood there, her lips still tingling, her mind trying to catch up with what had just happened. Around her, the club pulsed and throbbed, oblivious. The bartender was pouring drinks. A group of girls shrieked with laughter near the dance floor. Everything was exactly the same, except it wasn't. Arya. She turned. Luca was standing 5 feet away, his expression tight and furious. The blonde and brunette were nowhere in sight. What the hell was that? He demanded. Arya picked up her whiskey glass, drained the rest of it, and set it down with a soft clink. That, she said evenly, was me moving on. Moving on? Luca's voice rose. You just kissed some random guy in the middle of a club. And you just had 2 women all over you in the VIP section, so I guess we're even. His jaw clenched. That was nothing. They were just... Save it. Arya grabbed her purse from the bar. I'm done, Luca. We're done. You don't mean that. I really do. She started toward the exit, but Luca grabbed her arm, spinning her around. You're seriously going to throw away 8 months because of some misunderstanding? Arya yanked her arm free. It's not a misunderstanding when I can see your hand halfway up someone's dress. Arya, we're done, she repeated, her voice cold. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't show up at my apartment. Just stay away from me. She turned and walked out, pushing through the crowd and past the velvet ropes into the cool night air. The street was quieter here, just the hum of distant traffic and the muffled bass from the club behind her. She stood on the sidewalk, her chest heaving, and let the adrenaline drain out of her in one long exhale. It was over. 8 months, gone. And she felt Nothing. No tears, no regret, just a strange, hollow sense of relief. Her phone buzzed, a text from Luca. We need to talk. She blocked his number. Another buzz, a voicemail. She deleted it without listening. Arya shoved her phone into her purse and started walking. She didn't know where she was going, didn't care. She just needed to move, to put distance between herself and that club, between herself and Luca, between herself and the stupid choices that had led her here. She made it 3 blocks before she realized someone was following her. At first it was just a feeling, a prickle at the back of her neck, the sense of being watched. She slowed her pace, glancing over her shoulder. The street was mostly empty. Just a couple walking their dog and a man in a suit, his phone pressed to his ear. She kept walking. The feeling didn't go away. Arya turned down a side street, her heels clicking faster now. She glanced back again. The man in the suit was still there, maybe 20 feet behind her, his phone still at his ear. Her pulse spiked. She turned another corner, walked faster. The street here was darker, fewer lights, fewer people. She could hear footsteps behind her now, steady and deliberate. Arya's hand dove into her purse, fumbling for her phone. She pulled it out, her fingers shaking, and started to dial 911. A hand closed around her wrist. She spun, her heart slamming into her throat, and found herself face to face with Adrian. "Jesus," she gasped, jerking her hand back. "You scared the hell out of me." He didn't apologize, just looked at her, his expression unreadable. "You're being followed." What?" Adrian's gaze shifted past her, toward the end of the street. The man in the suit was standing there, still holding his phone, but he wasn't talking anymore. He was just watching. "Who is that?" Arya whispered. "I don't know, but he's been on you since you left the club." Her stomach dropped. "Are you serious?" Adrian didn't answer. He stepped past her, his movements calm and measured, and started walking toward the man. The man saw him coming and immediately turned, disappearing around the corner. Adrian stopped, watching him go, then turned back to Arya. "Come on," he said. Come on where?" "Somewhere that's not here." Arya hesitated. Every instinct she had was screaming at her to say no, to walk away, to not get into a stranger's car, or wherever he was planning to take her. But the alternative was standing alone on a dark street, being followed by someone she didn't know. She looked at Adrian. He was still waiting, his expression patient but firm. "Fine," she said. "But if you're a serial killer, I'm going to be really annoyed." Noted. He led her back toward the main street, where a black car was idling at the curb. The driver, a man in his 50s with silver hair and a perfectly pressed suit, stepped out and opened the back door. "Miss Bennett," he said with a polite nod. Arya blinked. "How do you know my name?" Adrian slid into the car. "Get in." She did, because apparently tonight was the night she made a series of increasingly questionable decisions. The driver closed the door behind her, and the car pulled smoothly into traffic. Inside, the silence was thick. Arya sat on one side of the leather seat, Adrian on the other, a careful distance between them. The city light slid past the tinted windows in streaks of gold and white. "So," Arya said finally, "are you going to tell me what just happened?" Adrian's gaze stayed on the window. "Someone was following you. I made sure they didn't." "Why?" "Why what?" "Why do you care? You don't know me." He turned his head, looking at her for the first time since they'd gotten in the car. His eyes were dark, unreadable, but there was something in them that made her pulse quicken. "You asked me to kiss you," he said quietly. "That makes you my problem." "Your problem?" "For now." Arya stared at him. "That's the weirdest thing anyone has ever said to me." "You'll get used to it." "I don't plan on sticking around long enough to get used to anything." Adrian's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "We'll see." The car stopped in front of a sleek high-rise in Tribeca, all glass and steel, an expensive minimalism. The driver opened the door and Adrian stepped out, then turned back to her. "You coming?" "Where are we?" "My place." Arya's eyes narrowed. "Yeah, that's not happening." "You have somewhere else to go?" She opened her mouth to say yes, then closed it. Her apartment was a 40-minute subway ride away. It was past midnight, and the image of that man following her was still burned into her mind. "This is a terrible idea," she muttered. So was kissing me. You seem to be on a roll. She glared at him, but she got out of the car. Adrian's apartment was exactly what she expected and nothing like it at the same time. The space was massive, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson, sleek furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum, and a silence so complete it felt almost oppressive. Arya stood in the middle of the living room, her arms crossed, watching as Adrian shrugged off his jacket and draped it over the back of a chair. "You can take the guest room," he said, nodding toward a hallway. "Second door on the left." "I'm not staying." "Yes, you are." "Excuse me?" He turned to face her, his expression calm but firm. "Someone followed you tonight. Until we know who and why, you're staying here. You don't get to make that decision." "I just did." Arya's jaw tightened. "You're unbelievable." "I've been called worse." She stared at him, frustration bubbling up in her chest. But underneath it, there was something else. Something she didn't want to name. "Fine," she said finally. "One night, and then I'm gone." Adrian nodded. "One night." He walked past her, his footsteps quiet on the hardwood floor, and disappeared down the hallway. Arya stood there for a moment, alone in the vast, silent space, and wondered what the hell she'd just gotten herself into. The guest room was as minimalist as the rest of the apartment. White walls, a king-sized bed with crisp linens, and a single abstract painting that probably cost more than Arya's car. She sat on the edge of the bed, still fully dressed, and stared at her phone. 3 missed calls from Luca. 2 voicemails. A string of texts. "Arya, we need to talk." "This is ridiculous." "You're being dramatic. Call me back." She deleted all of them. Then she opened her messages and stared at the blank screen, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. She wanted to text someone. Her best friend, maybe. Her mom. Anyone who could tell her she wasn't losing her mind. But what would she even say? "Hey, I kissed a stranger to get back at my ex, and now I'm staying at his penthouse because someone followed me home. Totally normal Tuesday." She locked her phone and set it on the nightstand. Outside, the city hummed and glowed, indifferent. Arya lay back on the bed, still in her dress and heels, and stared at the ceiling. Sleep didn't come for a long time. When she woke, the room was filled with pale morning light. Arya sat up, disoriented, her dress wrinkled and her makeup smudged. She stumbled into the attached bathroom, splashed water on her face, and stared at her reflection. She looked like she'd been through a war. When she finally emerged, she found Adrian in the kitchen, standing at the counter with a cup of coffee in one hand and his phone in the other. He was wearing a different suit, charcoal gray this time, impeccably tailored, and he looked like he'd been awake for hours. "Morning," he said without looking up. "Morning." Arya's voice was rough. She cleared her throat. "I should go." "You should eat." He gestured to the counter where a plate of toast and eggs sat waiting. Arya hesitated, then sat down on one of the bar stools and picked up a fork. "So," she said after a few bites, "are you going to tell me who you are?" Adrian set his phone down. "What do you want to know?" "How about we start with why you have a driver and a penthouse in Tribeca, and why you acted like it was totally normal for someone to follow me last night?" He picked up his coffee, took a slow sip, and set it down. "I own a security firm. We handle high-profile clients, stalking, harassment, corporate espionage, that sort of thing." "That's vague." "It's accurate." Arya studied him. "And you just happened to be at that club last night?" "I go there sometimes. It's quiet." "Quiet?" "It's one of the loudest clubs in Manhattan." "Not if you know where to sit." She set her fork down. "You're not telling me everything." Adrian's gaze met hers, steady and unreadable. "No, I'm not." "Why?" "Because you don't need to know everything, not yet." "That's comforting." He almost smiled. "You're still here." Arya opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. He was right. She was still here, and despite every red flag, every warning bell in her head, she didn't want to leave. "I need to go home," she said quietly. "Get some clean clothes, figure out what I'm doing with my life." "I'll have Marcus drive you." "Marcus?" "My driver." "Of course you have a driver named Marcus." Adrian stood, adjusting his cuffs. "I have a meeting in an hour. You're welcome to stay as long as you need." He started toward the door, then paused, glancing back at her. "Arya, She looked up. Don't answer the door for anyone, he said. And if Luca shows up, call me. Her chest tightened. How did you... But he was already gone. Pause. Marcus drove her back to her apartment in Brooklyn, a small studio in a converted warehouse that Arya had always loved for its exposed brick and terrible water pressure. She stood in the doorway, her keys in her hand, and felt the weight of the last 12 hours crash down on her. Everything looked the same. Her coffee mug was still in the sink. Her laptop was still open on the kitchen table. The throw blanket she'd left on the couch was still bunched up in the corner. But nothing felt the same. Arya dropped her purse on the counter and sank onto the couch, pulling the blanket over her lap. She sat there for a long time, staring at nothing, trying to piece together what had just happened. She'd broken up with Luca, kissed a stranger, been followed, spent the night in a penthouse. And now? What? Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her swipe. Hello? It's Adrian. Her pulse kicked. How did you get this number? I own a security firm, remember? That's creepy. That's thorough. There was a pause. Are you home? Yeah, why? Good. Stay there. I'm sending someone to install new locks. Arya sat up. You're what? New locks, better ones. The ones you have now are garbage. Adrian, humor me. She exhaled slowly, pinching the bridge of her nose. You can't just install locks on my apartment. I can, and I will. This is insane. This is necessary. His voice was calm, matter of fact. Someone followed you last night, Arya. Until we know why, you're vulnerable. So what am I supposed to do? Just let you take over my life? No, let me keep you safe. She didn't know what to say to that. I have to go, Adrian said. The locksmith will be there in 20 minutes. His name is Garrett. Don't let anyone else in. Adrian, but the line was already dead. Arya stared at her phone, torn between fury and something she couldn't quite name. Then she stood, walked to the window, and looked out at the street below. And that's when she saw him. Luca. He was standing on the sidewalk across the street, his hands in his pockets, staring up at her building, waiting. Arya's fingers went numb around her phone. She stepped back from the window, her breath catching, but she couldn't look away. Luca was still there, hands shoved deep in his pockets, his eyes fixed on her building like he had all the time in the world. Her phone was already ringing before she realized she'd called Adrian back. He's here, she said the second he picked up. Who's where? Luca. He's outside my building, just standing there. There was a pause. Not long, maybe 2 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. When Adrian spoke again, his voice had changed, quieter, colder. Lock your door. Don't go outside. I'm 10 minutes away. Adrian, I don't need you to... 10 minutes, Arya. The line went dead. She stood there staring at her phone, her heart hammering against her ribs. Then she walked to the door, checked the deadbolt, and slid the chain into place. The locks Adrian had called garbage. He was probably right. She went back to the window, staying to the side this time, and peered down. Luca hadn't moved. He was looking at his phone now, typing something, his face illuminated by the screen. Her phone buzzed. I know you're up there. Arya's stomach twisted. She didn't respond, didn't block the number, just watched as he typed again. We need to talk. I'm not leaving until we do. She shoved her phone into her pocket and paced the length of her apartment. It wasn't big enough for pacing. 12 steps from the window to the kitchen, 12 steps back. Her mind was racing, cycling through options. Call the police? And say what? That her ex-boyfriend was standing on a public sidewalk? That wasn't illegal? Creepy, yes. Controlling, absolutely. But not illegal? Another buzz. You can't avoid me forever. Arya clenched her jaw and pulled out her phone, her thumbs flying across the screen. We're done. I told you that last night. Leave me alone. The response came within seconds. You don't mean that. You were upset. I get it. But we can fix this. There's nothing to fix. It's over. Stop being dramatic. Just come down and talk to me like an adult. Her hands were shaking now. Fury and fear tangled up so tight she couldn't tell which was which. She started typing a response, then deleted it. Started again. Deleted it again. The buzzer rang. Arya froze. Her eyes went to the intercom panel by the door. It rang again, longer this time, insistent. She didn't move. It stopped. Then her phone rang. Luca's name on the screen. She didn't answer. It rang again, and again, and again. On the fourth call, she picked up. "What do you want, Luca?" "I want you to stop being childish and come down here so we can talk." "I have nothing to say to you." "Well, I have plenty to say to you." His voice was tight now, the charm stripped away. "You embarrassed me last night, Arya. In front of everyone. Do you have any idea how that looked? Do you have any idea how it looked when you had two women all over you?" "That was nothing. I told you I don't care what you told me. I saw what I saw, and I'm done." "You're not done. You're throwing a tantrum because you saw something you didn't understand." Arya laughed, sharp and humorless. "I understood perfectly. You're a liar and a cheat, and I'm done wasting my time." "So that's it? You're just going to walk away? After everything I've done for you? Everything you've—" She stopped, took a breath. "You know what? Yeah, that's it. I'm walking away. And if you don't leave, I'm calling the police." "For what? Standing on a sidewalk?" "For harassment." Luca's voice dropped, cold and deliberate. "You think you can just move on? Find some random guy at a bar and pretend like we never happened?" Arya's pulse spiked. "How I move on is none of your business. It is when you're making a fool of yourself. Who was that guy, anyway? Some nobody you picked up to make me jealous? Leave. Now. I'm not going anywhere until you come down here and—" Arya hung up. Her hands were trembling so badly she almost dropped the phone. She set it on the counter, face down, and pressed her palms flat against the cool surface, trying to steady herself. The buzzer rang again. She ignored it. It rang again and again. A relentless grating sound that made her want to scream. Then it stopped. Arya waited, her breath shallow, listening. Silence. She moved back to the window carefully and looked down. Luca was still there, but now he was talking to someone, a man in a black car that had just pulled up to the curb. The back door opened and Adrian stepped out. Relief flooded through her, so sudden and overwhelming she had to grip the windowsill to stay upright. Adrian said something to Luca. She couldn't hear the words, but she could see Luca's reaction. He stepped back, his hands coming up in a defensive gesture. Adrian didn't move, just stood there, calm and still, his expression unreadable even from 4 stories up. Luca said something back, pointed at the building. Adrian's head tilted slightly, and then he took one step forward. Just one, but it was enough. Luca went quiet, his jaw tight, his hands dropping to his sides. They stood there for another moment, locked in some silent standoff, and then Luca turned and walked away. He didn't look back. Adrian watched him go, waited until he disappeared around the corner, then turned and looked up at Arya's window. Even from this distance, she could feel the weight of his gaze. Her phone buzzed. "Let me up." She didn't hesitate. Just pressed the intercom button and unlocked the door. Adrian was at her apartment in under a minute. She opened the door before he could knock, and he stepped inside, his eyes sweeping the space in one quick, efficient scan before landing on her. "You okay?" Arya nodded. "Yeah, I'm fine." He didn't look convinced. "What did he say to you?" "Nothing important, just the usual. That I was overreacting, that we needed to talk." "He's not going to stop." "I know." Adrian's jaw tightened. He walked past her, moving to the window, and looked down at the street below. "How long was he out there?" "I don't know, 10 minutes, 15. "And he was calling you?" It wasn't a question. Arya nodded anyway. "Yeah, texting too." Adrian turned, his eyes sharp. "Show me." She hesitated, then pulled out her phone and handed it to him. He scrolled through the messages, his expression darkening with each line. When he got to the calls, 12 in total, he looked up at her. "This isn't just an ex who won't let go," he said quietly. "This is escalation. He's just upset. He'll get over it." "Will he?" Arya didn't answer, because the truth was she didn't know. She'd never seen Luca like this before. Persistent, yes. Controlling, sometimes. But this? This felt different. Adrian handed her phone back. "You can't stay here." "What?" "It's not safe." He knows where you live, he knows your routines, and if he's willing to stand outside your building for 20 minutes just to make a point, he's not going to stop. So what am I supposed to do? Move? For now, yes. Arya stared at him. You're serious? Completely. Adrian, I can't just... You can, and you will. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, then looked back at her. Pack a bag, enough for a few days. You're staying with me. No, absolutely not. It's not a request. It's my life. And I'm trying to keep you alive. The words hit her like a slap. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. Because underneath the anger and the fear and the stubborn refusal to be told what to do, there was a part of her that knew he was right. Fine, she said finally. But just for a few days, until he calms down. Adrian didn't argue, just nodded. Get your things. I'll wait. Arya grabbed a duffel bag from her closet and started throwing clothes into it. Jeans, shirts, underwear, a pair of sneakers. She moved quickly, mechanically, trying not to think too hard about what she was doing. About the fact that she was leaving her apartment, her space, because of Luca. Because of a kiss that was supposed to be meaningless. When she came back out, Adrian was standing by the door, his phone to his ear. Yeah, tonight. Make sure the West guest room is ready. A pause. No, just her. Another pause. I'll explain later. He hung up and looked at her. Ready? As I'll ever be. They took the stairs instead of the elevator. Adrian insisted, and Arya didn't argue. When they reached the ground floor, he stepped out first, scanning the street, then nodded for her to follow. Marcus was waiting by the car, the back door already open. Arya slid in, and Adrian followed. The door closed, and they pulled away from the curb. Arya watched her building disappear in the side mirror, a tight knot forming in her chest. This was temporary. Just a few days. Luca would cool off, realize he was being ridiculous, and move on. And then she could go back to her life. Except she wasn't sure she believed that anymore. Adrian was silent beside her, his gaze fixed on the window. After a few minutes, he spoke. We need to set some ground rules. Arya turned to look at him. Ground rules? If you're staying with me, we do this my way. That means no going out alone, no answering the door unless I clear it first, and no contact with Luca, at all. I already blocked his number. Good, keep it that way. She crossed her arms. Anything else? Yeah. If something feels off, you tell me, immediately. No second guessing, no waiting to see if it's a big deal. Just tell me. Arya studied him, trying to read the expression on his face. He looked calm, controlled, like this was just another Tuesday for him. But there was something in his eyes, something sharp and protective and almost possessive. Why are you doing this? She asked quietly. Adrian's gaze shifted to her. Doing what? All of this. The locks, the guest room, the rules. You don't know me. We kissed once. That doesn't make you responsible for me. He was quiet for a long moment, his eyes locked on hers. Then he said, Maybe not, but I'm responsible anyway. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to. The car pulled up in front of his building, and Marcus opened the door. Adrian stepped out, then offered his hand to Arya. She took it, her fingers brushing against his, and felt that same jolt she'd felt the night before. Electric. Unsettling. Inside the penthouse, everything was exactly as she remembered. Sleek, silent, expensive. Adrian set her bag down in the hallway and turned to her. West guest room, down the hall, last door on the right. There's a bathroom attached. Help yourself to anything you need. Thanks. He nodded, already pulling out his phone. I have some calls to make. If you need anything, just ask. Arya watched him walk away, disappearing into what she assumed was his office, and stood there for a moment, alone in the vast space. Then she picked up her bag and headed to the guest room. It was bigger than her entire studio. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a king bed with pristine white linens, a sitting area with a leather chair and a bookshelf. Arya dropped her bag on the bed and sank into the chair, staring out at the city below. This was insane. All of it. 24 hours ago, she'd been in a relationship, planning her week, living her normal, predictable life. And now she was staying in a stranger's penthouse, hiding from an ex who wouldn't take no for an answer, and tangled up with a man who kissed like he meant it and talked like he owned the world. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Her stomach dropped. You think he can protect you? He can't. I'll be seeing you soon, Arya. Her hands went cold. She stood, her pulse racing, and walked to Adrian's office. The door was cracked open. She pushed it wider and stepped inside. Adrian was at his desk, his phone still pressed to his ear. He looked up when she entered, his expression shifting instantly from focused to alert. I'll call you back, he said into the phone, then hung up. What's wrong? Arya held out her phone. I got this. He took it, read the message, and his jaw tightened. When? Just now. He stood, already dialing a number. Stay here. Adrian, stay here. He walked out, his voice low and clipped as he spoke into the phone. Arya sank into the chair across from his desk, her hands shaking. She could hear fragments of his conversation through the open door. I need a trace on this number. Yes, now. I don't care what it takes. Get me a location. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to steady her breathing. This was escalating, fast, and she didn't know how to stop it. Adrian came back a few minutes later, his expression grim. It's a burner, untraceable. So what do we do? We assume it's Luca, and we treat it like a threat. You think he'd actually hurt me? Adrian's eyes met hers, dark and serious. I think he's unstable, and unstable people do unpredictable things. Arya's chest tightened. This is crazy. I just wanted to end a relationship. I didn't ask for any of this. I know. Adrian's voice softened, just slightly. But you're in it now, and I'm not letting anything happen to you. Why? The word came out sharper than she intended. Why do you care so much? He didn't answer right away, just looked at her, something unreadable flickering across his face. Then he said, because you asked me to kiss you, and I said yes. That makes you mine to protect. I'm not yours. Not yet. The air between them shifted, charged with something Arya couldn't name. She stood, needing to move, needing to break whatever this was. I need some air, she said. No. Adrian, no. Not until we know what we're dealing with. She glared at him. You can't keep me locked up in here. Watch me. They stood there, locked in a silent standoff, until Arya's phone buzzed again. They both looked down at it. Another text. Same number. 1 month. That's all I'm giving you. 1 month to come back. After that, things get complicated. Adrian took the phone from her hand, his expression cold. He's playing games. What kind of games? The kind that end badly. He looked at her. I need you to trust me. I don't even know you. Then get to know me. But trust me anyway. Arya wanted to argue, wanted to push back, to take control of her own life again. But the truth was, she was scared. And Adrian was the only thing standing between her and whatever Luca was planning. Fine, she said quietly. I'll trust you. For now. Adrian nodded. That's all I need. He handed her phone back, then turned and walked to the window, his hands in his pockets. Arya watched him, trying to piece together who this man was, what he wanted, why he was doing all of this for someone he barely knew. Can I ask you something? She said. Depends on the question. Why were you at that club last night? You said it was quiet, but that doesn't make sense. You don't seem like the type who needs to be around people. Adrian glanced back at her, a faint smile tugging at his mouth. I'm not. So why were you there? He turned fully, leaning against the window frame. I was meeting someone. Business. What kind of business? The kind I don't talk about. That's convenient. That's honest. Arya crossed her arms. You're really not going to tell me anything, are you? Not yet. Why not? Because the less you know, the safer you are. That's a terrible answer. It's the only one I have. She wanted to push harder, to demand real answers, but something in his expression told her she wouldn't get them. Not now. Maybe not ever. Fine, she said, but if I'm staying here, I need something to do. I can't just sit around all day. Adrian's mouth twitched. You work, right? What do you do? Graphic design, freelance. So work from here. I need my computer. It's at my apartment. I'll have Marcus pick it up. And my files, and my tablet. Make a list. He'll get everything. Arya shook her head, half amused, half frustrated. You really do think you can just fix everything, don't you? I don't think. I know. That's arrogant. That's experience. She laughed, surprising herself. You're impossible. So I've been told. Adrian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression shifting. I have to take this. Make yourself at home. There's food in the kitchen, wine in the fridge. Whatever you need. He walked out before she could respond, already talking into the phone in a voice too low for her to hear. Arya stood there for a moment, alone again, then wandered back to the guest room. She unpacked her bag, hung up her clothes, and tried to settle in. But the silence of the penthouse was unnerving, too big, too quiet, too empty. She pulled out her phone and opened her messages. The texts from Luca were still there, sitting like landmines. She reread them, her stomach twisting, then opened a new thread and started typing. I don't know what you think you're doing, but it's not going to work. Leave me alone. We're done. For good. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. The response came almost immediately. You'll change your mind. You always do. Arya's jaw clenched. She typed back, her fingers flying. I won't. And if you keep harassing me, I'll get a restraining order. Good luck with that. You'd have to prove I'm a threat, and all I've done is try to talk to you. She wanted to throw her phone across the room. Instead, she set it down, face up, and walked to the window. The city stretched out below her, endless and indifferent. Somewhere out there, Luca was planning his next move, and she had no idea what it would be. A soft knock on the door made her turn. Adrian stepped inside, his expression careful. You okay? No, but I will be. He nodded, like that was answer enough. I'm ordering dinner. Any preferences? I don't care. Whatever's fine. Italian okay? Sure. He started to leave, then paused. Arya. Yeah? You did the right thing, ending it with him. Doesn't feel like it. It will. Eventually. He left, and Arya sank onto the bed, staring at the ceiling. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that this would all blow over, that Luca would move on, that her life would go back to normal. But deep down, she knew it wouldn't, because nothing about this was normal, and the man in the other room, the one who'd kissed her like it meant something, who'd sent a locksmith to her apartment, who'd just ordered her dinner like it was the most natural thing in the world, was anything but ordinary. Dinner arrived an hour later. Adrian set the table in the dining room, an absurdly long slab of dark wood that could have seated 20, and they ate in near silence. Arya picked at her pasta, her appetite gone. Adrian ate methodically, his gaze occasionally flicking to her. You should eat, he said. I'm not hungry. You need to eat anyway. She set down her fork. Do you always tell people what to do? Only when they're not taking care of themselves. I can take care of myself. Can you? The question hit harder than it should have. Arya looked away, her throat tight. I used to think so. Adrian was quiet for a moment, then he said, You still can. You just need time. Time for what? To figure out who you are without him. Arya's eyes burned. She blinked hard, refusing to let the tears fall. I thought I already knew. You do? You're just remembering. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something in his eyes she hadn't expected. Understanding, not pity, not sympathy, just quiet, steady understanding. Thank you, she said softly. Adrian nodded. Finish your dinner. She did. Not because she was hungry, but because he was right. She needed to take care of herself. And if that meant forcing down pasta she didn't want, so be it. After dinner, Adrian disappeared into his office again, and Arya retreated to the guest room. She tried to work, pulling up files on her laptop, but her focus was shot. Every time her phone buzzed, her heart jumped. Every creak of the building, every distant siren, made her tense. Around 11, she gave up and got ready for bed. She brushed her teeth, changed into an oversized t-shirt, and climbed under the covers. But sleep didn't come. She lay there staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. A soft knock on the door made her sit up. Yeah? Adrian pushed the door open slightly. He was still dressed, minus the jacket, his shirt sleeves rolled up to his elbows. Can't sleep? He asked. How'd you know? Your light's still on. Arya pulled the blanket up to her chest. I'm fine. You're not, but that's okay. He stepped into the room, just far enough to lean against the doorframe. You want to talk about it? About what? Whatever's keeping you awake. She laughed, bitter and tired. Where do I even start? Wherever you want. Arya looked at him, this man who'd upended her entire life in less than 48 hours, and felt something shift in her chest. Something dangerous. I keep thinking about what you said, she admitted, about figuring out who I am without Luca. And I realized, I don't know if I ever really knew. I spent so much time trying to be what he wanted that I forgot what I wanted. Adrian's expression softened. So, figure it out now. It's not that simple. It is. You just think it isn't. She shook her head. You make everything sound so easy. That's because most things are. People just complicate them. And what about you? Are you simple or complicated? Adrian smiled, slow and dangerous. I'm whatever I need to be. Arya's pulse quickened. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting tonight. He pushed off the doorframe, started to leave, then paused. Get some sleep, Arya. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Why? What's happening tomorrow? We're going to deal with Luca, permanently. And before she could ask what that meant, he was gone. Arya didn't sleep. She lay there for hours, Adrian's words circling in her mind like vultures. Deal with Luca, permanently. What did that even mean? And why did the way he said it, calm, certain, final, make her skin prickle with something between fear and relief? By the time dawn crept through the windows, painting the city in shades of gray and gold, she'd given up on rest entirely. She showered, dressed in jeans and a sweater, and padded barefoot into the kitchen. Adrian was already there, standing at the counter with a cup of coffee in one hand and his phone in the other. He looked like he hadn't slept either, but somehow he wore exhaustion like tailoring, perfectly controlled, nothing out of place. He glanced up when she entered. Morning. Morning. Arya went straight for the coffee pot, poured herself a cup, and leaned against the counter. So, you want to tell me what you meant last night? About? Dealing with Luca. Permanently. Adrian set his phone down. I meant exactly what I said. That's not an explanation. It's all you need right now. Arya's jaw tightened. You know what? I'm getting really tired of you deciding what I need and don't need to know. Then stop asking questions you're not ready to hear the answers to. How do you know I'm not ready? Adrian's gaze locked onto hers, steady and unyielding. Because if I told you everything right now, you'd walk out that door. And I can't let you do that. You can't let me... She stopped, set her coffee down hard enough that it sloshed over the rim. You don't get to control my life, Adrian. I don't care how many locks you install or how many guest rooms you offer. I'm not your responsibility. You became my responsibility the second you kissed me. That's insane. That's the truth. They stared at each other, the silence thick and crackling. Arya wanted to scream at him, wanted to storm out, wanted to take back every decision that had led her here. But underneath all that fury was something else, something quieter, something that whispered maybe, just maybe, she didn't want to leave at all. The buzzer rang, shattering the moment. Adrian's expression shifted instantly, going sharp and cold. He moved to the intercom panel, pressed a button. Yeah. It's Garrett, Mr. Moretti. Got the items from Miss Bennett's apartment. Adrian buzzed him up, then turned to Arya. Your computer and files. I had him pick them up this morning. You what? You said you needed them, so I got them. Arya opened her mouth, closed it. Because what was she supposed to say? Thank you for breaking into my apartment? Or maybe stop making decisions for me? Before she could decide, there was a knock at the door. Adrian opened it, and a man in his 40s with graying hair and weathered hands stepped inside, carrying a large box. Morning, sir. Everything's here. Computer, tablet, external hard drive, that lamp she had on her desk. You took my lamp? Garrett looked at her, then at Adrian. You said everything she might need. I did. Adrian took the box, set it on the counter. Thanks, Garrett. Anything unusual? Place was clean. No signs of forced entry, no one hanging around outside. But Garrett hesitated, glancing at Arya, then back to Adrian. There was a car parked across the street. Black sedan, tinted windows. Stayed there the whole time I was inside. Adrian's jaw tightened. Plates? I got 'em. Garrett pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket and handed it over. Ran them already. Registered to a rental company. Corporate account. Name? Vance Industries. The room went cold. Arya's stomach dropped. Luca's family owns Vance Industries. Adrian didn't look surprised, just nodded slowly, like this was confirmation of something he'd already suspected. Anything else? Guy in the driver's seat, big, clean-cut, ex-military type. Didn't get out, didn't move, just watched. Get me a photo? Garrett shook his head. Windows were too dark, but I got the make and model. I'll send you everything. Adrian handed him a folded bill that looked like it had a lot of zeros. Good work. Keep an eye on her building. Anyone comes around asking questions, I want to know immediately. You got it, Garrett nodded to Arya. Ma'am? And then he was gone. Arya stood there, her hands gripping the edge of the counter, trying to process what she'd just heard. He had someone watching my apartment. Yes. Why? Because he's not going to let this go. But why? We dated for 8 months. It's not like we were engaged or... She stopped, her breath catching. You think this is about more than just the breakup? Adrian's eyes met hers. I know it is. How? Because men like Luca don't send surveillance teams to watch their exes. They do it when they're protecting something or trying to get something back. I don't have anything he wants. Are you sure? Arya thought about it, really thought about it. Her mind raced through the last 8 months, trying to find anything that would make her worth this kind of attention. She was a freelance graphic designer. She didn't have money, didn't have connections, didn't have access to anything that mattered. Except, oh my God, she whispered. Adrian's expression shifted. What? 3 months ago, Luca asked me to design some marketing materials for Vance Industries, brochures, presentations, a whole rebrand package. I did it as a favor. He said it was a new division they were launching. Import-export, something like that. Did you keep copies? Of course, I keep everything. It's all on my external hard drive. Adrian moved fast. He opened the box Garrett had brought, pulled out the hard drive, and plugged it into his laptop. His fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up files, scanning through them with a focus that made Arya's pulse spike. This, he said quietly. These aren't marketing materials. Arya moved closer, looking over his shoulder at the screen. The documents looked normal at first glance. Sleek layouts, professional copy, images of shipping containers and warehouses. But Adrian was zooming in on something in the corner of one of the images. A shipping manifest. And the numbers on it didn't match the text. What am I looking at? She asked. Encrypted data, hidden in the image files. Adrian pulled up another document, ran it through some kind of program that made the screen flicker with code. You didn't just design brochures, Arya. You designed a front. And whoever has these files has evidence of every shipment Vance Industries has moved in the last 6 months. Her blood went cold. Evidence of what? Adrian didn't answer right away. He was still typing, pulling up more files, running more scans. Finally, he sat back and looked at her. Money laundering, weapons trafficking, possibly more. He paused. Your ex-boyfriend isn't just some rich kid, Arya. He's running a criminal network, and you've got proof of it sitting on your hard drive. Arya's legs went weak. She grabbed the back of Adrian's chair to steady herself. That's not possible. Luca's an ass, but he's not a criminal. Then explain the surveillance team. Explain the threatening texts. Explain why he's so desperate to get you back that he's willing to risk everything. She couldn't, because every piece of it fit together in a way that made her stomach turn. He used me, she said quietly. He knew I'd keep copies. He probably counted on it. And when I broke up with him, you became a liability. Arya sank into the chair across from him, her mind spinning. What do I do? Nothing. I'll handle it. How? Adrian closed the laptop, his expression grim. By making sure Luca understands that you're not someone he can touch, ever again. And how exactly are you going to do that? The same way I handle every threat. Quietly, permanently. There it was again, that word. Permanent. And this time, Arya understood exactly what it meant. You're going to kill him. Adrian's eyes snapped to hers. No, I'm going to make him disappear. There's a difference. Not much of one. There is when it matters. He stood, his movements controlled but tense. Luca's connected. His family has money, influence, legal protection. If he dies, questions get asked. Investigations happen. But if he just goes away, if he leaves the country, takes a deal, disappears into the system, no one asks questions. They just move on. Arya stared at him. Who are you? Adrian's mouth curved, but it wasn't a smile. Someone who solves problems. That's not an answer. It's the only one I'm giving you. She wanted to push, to demand the truth, but something in his expression told her she wouldn't get it. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out, saw the notification, and her blood ran cold. Unknown number. Again. I know you're with him, and I know what you took. Give it back, and maybe we can work this out. Keep it, and I'll make sure you regret every second of that kiss. Arya's hand shook as she handed the phone to Adrian. He read the message, his jaw tightening, then set it down on the counter with deliberate care. He's escalating, Adrian said. Faster than I expected. What does that mean? It means we don't have as much time as I thought. He pulled out his own phone, dialed a number. I need a meeting, tonight. No, I don't care. Make it happen. He hung up, then looked at Arya. Pack an overnight bag. Why? Where are we going? Somewhere Luca can't follow. Somewhere he won't think to look. Adrian, trust me. And because she didn't know what else to do, because the walls were closing in and the threats were getting louder, and the only person standing between her and chaos was this man she barely knew, she nodded. Okay, I trust you. Adrian's expression softened, just for a second. Then it was gone, replaced by that cool, controlled mask he wore so well. Good. Be ready in an hour. He walked out, already dialing another number, his voice low and clipped. Arya stood there, alone in the massive kitchen, and tried to figure out how her life had spiraled so completely out of control in less than 3 days. She went back to the guest room, packed a small bag with clothes and toiletries, and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her phone. The messages from Luca were still there, sitting like landmines. She wanted to delete them, to block the number, to erase every trace of him from her life. But Adrian's words echoed in her mind. Evidence, proof, liability. She couldn't delete them. Not yet. An hour later, Marcus was waiting by the car. Adrian appeared in the hallway, dressed in dark jeans and a black jacket that somehow made him look even more dangerous than the suits. He took Arya's bag without a word and led her downstairs. The drive was silent. Arya watched the city blur past the windows, the familiar streets giving way to unfamiliar ones, until they were crossing a bridge and leaving Manhattan behind entirely. She didn't ask where they were going, didn't ask how long they'd be gone. She just sat there, numb and exhausted and trying not to think about what came next. They drove for over an hour, the buildings and lights fading into trees and darkness, until Marcus turned onto a narrow road that wound through dense forest. Finally, they stopped in front of a house. No, a compound. High walls, iron gates, security cameras everywhere. The gates opened. They drove through. The house itself was massive, sprawling across the property like something out of a magazine. All stone and glass and clean lines. Arya stepped out of the car, her breath misting in the cold night air, and stared. Where are we? Upstate, Adrian said. One of my properties. No one knows about it except the people I trust. And how many people is that? 3, including you. He led her inside through a foyer that opened into a living room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a lake. The water was black and still, reflecting the moonlight like a mirror. There's food in the kitchen, Adrian said. Bedrooms upstairs. Pick whichever one you want. I'll be in the office if you need me. Adrian, wait. He stopped, turned. How long are we staying here? As long as it takes. As long as what takes? For me to make this go away. And before she could ask anything else, he was gone. Arya stood there, alone in the vast, silent house, and felt the weight of everything crash down on her. She'd run. She'd hidden. She'd let a stranger take control of her life because she didn't know what else to do. And now she was trapped in a house in the middle of nowhere, waiting for a man she barely knew to fix a problem she didn't even fully understand. She walked to the window, pressed her forehead against the cool glass, and let out a long, shaky breath. Somewhere out there, Luca was planning his next move. And somewhere in this house, Adrian was planning his, and she was caught in the middle with no idea which one scared her more. Hours passed. Arya tried to sleep but couldn't, tried to eat but had no appetite. Finally, around midnight, she gave up and went looking for Adrian. She found him in a room at the end of the hall, sitting at a desk covered in papers and laptops, his face illuminated by the blue glow of the screens. He didn't look up when she entered. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "No." "Join the club." Arya moved closer, peering at the screens. They were filled with documents, photos, surveillance footage. She recognized Luca in some of them, and in others, men she'd never seen before. Hard-looking men with cold eyes and expensive suits. "Who are they?" she asked. "Luca's associates. The people he works for. The people who'll come after you if we don't handle this right." Her stomach twisted. "And you're going to stop them?" "I'm going to make them an offer they can't refuse." "Which is?" Adrian finally looked at her. "Luca in exchange for your safety. Permanently." Arya's breath caught. "You're going to give him to them." "I'm going to give them what they want, which is the evidence on your hard drive and the person responsible for letting it slip through the cracks." "Luca. Luca." She sank into the chair across from him. "He'll never agree to that. He won't have a choice." "Why are you doing this?" The question came out raw, desperate. "You could have just walked away. Let me deal with this on my own." "But you didn't. Why?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he closed his laptop and looked at her, really looked at her, his dark eyes searching hers. "Because when you kissed me," he said quietly, "it wasn't an act. You meant it, even if you didn't realize it at the time. And I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since." Arya's heart stuttered. "Adrian, I'm not a good man, Arya. I do things that would horrify you if you knew the details. I've built an empire on violence and fear and control. But when you walked up to me in that club and asked me for a favor, something shifted, and now I can't walk away, even if I wanted to." She didn't know what to say, couldn't find the words, so she did the only thing that made sense. She leaned across the desk and kissed him. It was different this time. Slower, deeper. Not a performance or a statement or revenge. Just them. In the darkness, with nothing between them but truth. When she pulled back, Adrian's hand was in her hair, his forehead resting against hers. "This is a bad idea," he murmured. "Probably. You're going to regret it." "Maybe." His mouth curved against hers. "Then let's make it count." He kissed her again, harder this time, and Arya forgot about Luca and the threats and the files and everything else. There was only this, only him, only the way he kissed her like she was something worth protecting. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Adrian pulled back and looked at her. "Go to bed, Arya. We've got a long day tomorrow." "What's happening tomorrow?" "I'm meeting with Luca's people, and I'm ending this." Arya wanted to argue, to insist she be there, to demand a say in her own fate, but the look in Adrian's eyes told her she wouldn't win this fight. So she nodded, stood, and walked to the door. But before she left, she turned back. "Adrian?" "Yeah?" "Don't get yourself killed doing this." His mouth twitched. "I'll do my best." She left him there, surrounded by screens and plans and the weight of whatever he was about to do, and went upstairs. She found a bedroom, climbed into bed fully clothed, and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, Adrian would face Luca's people. Tomorrow, he would make a deal that could save her life or destroy it. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, all she could think about was the way he'd kissed her. Like she mattered, like she was worth the risk. And for the first time in days, she let herself hope that maybe, just maybe, she'd survive this after all. Morning came too fast. Arya woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee drifting up from downstairs. She got up, splashed water on her face, and went to find Adrian. He was in the kitchen, dressed in a dark suit that made him look every inch the dangerous man he claimed to be. He glanced up when she entered. "Sleep?" "A little." "You?" "Enough." She poured herself coffee, her hands shaking slightly. "So what's the plan?" "I meet with them at 2, neutral location. I give them the files. They give me assurances about your safety. And Luca? They'll handle him. He's a loose end they can't afford. Arya's stomach turned. You're sending him to his death. I'm sending him to face the consequences of his choices. What happens after that isn't on me. How can you be so calm about this? Adrian set his coffee down and looked at her. Because if I'm not calm, people die. And I'm trying very hard to make sure you're not one of them. The words hit her like a punch. She set her own cup down, her throat tight. I don't want you to get hurt because of me. I won't. You can't promise that. Watch me. They stood there, the space between them charged with everything they weren't saying. Finally, Adrian crossed the distance and cupped her face in his hands. I'm going to fix this, he said quietly, and when I do, you're going to have your life back. No threats, no surveillance teams, no ex-boyfriend stalking you, just you, living however you want. And what about you? His thumb brushed across her cheek. What about me? Do I get to keep you too? Adrian's expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering across his face before he locked it down. Do you want to? Arya didn't hesitate. Yes. He kissed her then, slow and deep and full of promises neither of them could keep. And when he pulled away, his eyes were dark and serious. Then you've got me. For as long as you want. That might be a while. Good. He stepped back, straightened his jacket, and grabbed his phone. Stay here. Don't answer the door. Don't leave the property. Marcus is outside if you need anything. Adrian, I'll be back before dark. And then he was gone, leaving Arya alone in the massive house with nothing but her fear and her hope, and the lingering taste of his kiss. The hours crawled by. Arya tried to work, tried to distract herself, but her mind kept circling back to Adrian and whatever meeting he was walking into. She paced the length of the house, counted the minutes, watched the sun arc across the sky. At 3:30, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Her heart stopped. He thinks he can save you. He can't. By tonight, you'll understand exactly who you're dealing with, and you'll come back to me. They always do. Arya's hand shook as she dialed Adrian's number. It went straight to voicemail. She tried again. Voicemail. Panic clawed at her chest. She ran to the window looking for Marcus, for the car, for anything, but the driveway was empty. Another buzz. Don't bother calling him. He's a little busy right now. But don't worry. I'll see you soon, Arya, real soon. The lights went out. All of them. The whole house plunged into darkness. Arya's breath came in short, sharp gasps. She fumbled for her phone, turned on the flashlight, and backed toward the stairs. A sound. Downstairs, the creak of a floorboard. Someone was in the house. Arya's phone slipped from her hand, clattering against the hardwood floor. The sound echoed through the house like a gunshot. She froze. Her breath caught somewhere between her lungs and her throat, listening. Another creak. Closer now, deliberate. Whoever was down there wasn't trying to hide anymore. She grabbed her phone, killed the flashlight, and moved as quietly as she could toward the bedroom she'd slept in. Her mind raced through options, lock the door, hide, call the police. Except she had no idea where she was, no address to give them, and Adrian's phone was going straight to voicemail. The footsteps reached the stairs. Arya slipped into the bedroom, eased the door shut, and turned the lock with shaking hands. It was flimsy, decorative, the kind of lock that wouldn't stop anyone who actually wanted in. She backed toward the window, her pulse hammering in her ears. The glass overlooked the lake, black water stretching out into nothingness. Too high to jump, no fire escape, no way out. Her phone lit up in her hand. Text message. Come downstairs, Arya. Let's talk like adults. She didn't respond, didn't move, just pressed herself against the wall beside the window and tried to think. The footsteps stopped outside her door. A knock, 3 sharp raps that made her flinch. I know you're in there. Luca's voice, calm, almost friendly. The silent treatment's getting old. Open the door. Arya's throat closed. She couldn't speak even if she wanted to. Fine. We'll do this the hard way. The door exploded inward, not kicked, blown. The lock shattered, the wood splintering, and Luca stepped through the wreckage like he owned the place. He looked different, still handsome in that polished, expensive way, but there was something off now, something in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Wild, unhinged. There you are, he said. I've been looking everywhere for you. Arya's back hit the window. How did you find me? I told you, I know everything. He moved closer, his hands in his pockets, his expression almost pleasant. Did you really think Adrian could hide you from me? I've been tracking his movements for weeks. Every property, every safe house, every little secret he thinks he's keeping. He smiled. He's good, but I'm better. You need to leave. I will. And you're coming with me. Like hell I am. Luca's smile faded. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Arya. I came here to bring you home, to fix what you broke. I didn't break anything. You did. When you lied to me, when you used me. Used you? He laughed, short and bitter. I gave you everything, took you to the best restaurants, introduced you to people who mattered, let you into my life. And this is how you repay me? By stealing from me? I didn't steal anything. You asked me to design those files. I did my job. And then you kept copies. Why? Because I always keep copies. It's called being a professional. Luca's jaw tightened. Those files don't belong to you. They belong to me. And you're going to give them back. No. He moved fast, crossed the space between them in 2 strides and grabbed her arm, his fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. This isn't a negotiation. Arya tried to pull away, but his grip was iron. Let go of me. Not until you tell me where they are. I don't have them. Adrian does. Something flickered in Luca's eyes. Rage, maybe. Or fear. Then we'll go get them. Together. He'll kill you. No, he won't. Because you're going to call him and tell him to stand down. Tell him you made a mistake. Tell him you want to come back to me. That's insane. Luca yanked her closer, his face inches from hers. Do it. Now. Or I'll make sure Adrian never makes it out of that meeting alive. Arya's blood went cold. What did you do? What I had to. I told you, Arya, I know everything. I know where he is right now. I know who he's meeting with. And I know exactly how to make sure he doesn't walk out of that room. You're bluffing, am I? He pulled out his phone, showed her the screen, a video feed, live. Adrian sitting at a table in what looked like a warehouse, surrounded by men in suits. 1 phone call, that's all it takes. 1 call, and they put a bullet in his head. Arya's legs nearly gave out. No, please. Then do what I'm asking. Call him. Tell him to give me back what's mine. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold her phone. She pulled up Adrian's number, stared at it, her mind racing. If she called him, she'd be walking him into a trap. But if she didn't, Luca would kill him anyway. She pressed dial. It rang once, twice. Arya, Adrian's voice tight and controlled. What's wrong? Her voice cracked. She tried again. Luca's here. He found the house. He has me. Silence. Then, low and deadly, put him on. Luca took the phone from her hand, his smile sharp. Adrian, good to finally talk to you properly. If you hurt her, I'll bury you so deep no one will ever find the body. Big words for someone who's currently surrounded by people who'd love an excuse to kill you. Luca glanced at the video feed on his own phone. You're at the Pier 7 warehouse meeting with the Volkov crew. Brave move, by the way. Stupid, but brave. Well, what do you want, Luca? What's mine? The files, the hard drive, everything Arya took from me. She didn't take anything. You gave it to her. Semantics. I want it back, and I want you to walk away. From her, from this mess, from all of it. Adrian's laugh was cold. Not going to happen. Then I guess we're at an impasse. Because I'm not leaving without her. And you're not leaving that warehouse alive unless I make a call. You think the Volkovs are working for you? You're dumber than I thought. Luca's expression flickered. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that I've been planning this for 3 days. You think I walked into this blind? I've got leverage you don't even know about. And the second you try to make that call, you're going to find out exactly how deep you're buried. You're bluffing. Try me. Luca's hand tightened on the phone. Arya could see the calculation in his eyes, the doubt creeping in. He glanced at his video feed, then back at her. Fine, he said finally. New deal. I take Arya. You keep the files. Everyone walks away. No. No? She's not a bargaining chip. She's not yours to trade. And if you think I'm going to let you walk out of there with her, you're out of your mind. Luca's face twisted. Then what's your play, Adrian? Because from where I'm standing, you don't have one. My play is simple. You let her go. You walk away. And maybe, if I'm feeling generous, I don't tell the Volkovs that you've been skimming from their shipments for the last 6 months. The color drained from Luca's face. How did you? I told you. I've been planning this. And you just confirmed it. Luca's jaw clenched. He shoved the phone back at Arya, his hands shaking with barely controlled rage. This isn't over. Yeah, Arya said quietly. It is. He grabbed her arm again, harder this time, and dragged her toward the door. We're leaving. Now! Arya tried to dig her heels in, but he was stronger, and her feet slid uselessly across the floor. Let go of me! Shut up. They were halfway down the stairs when the front door crashed open. Adrian stood in the doorway, his suit jacket gone, his shirt untucked, a gun in his hand. He looked calm, almost bored, but his eyes were black fire. Let her go, Luca. Luca stopped, yanking Arya against his chest and using her as a shield. You shoot me! You hit her! I don't miss! You willing to risk it? Adrian's gaze flicked to Arya. She saw something in his expression that made her chest tighten. Not fear, not hesitation, just cold, absolute certainty. Arya, he said quietly. Drop. She didn't think. Just let her legs collapse, her weight dragging down in Luca's grip. He stumbled, his hold loosening for a fraction of a second, and Adrian moved. One shot, clean, precise. Luca screamed, his hand flying to his shoulder, and Arya scrambled away, hitting the floor hard. Adrian was on him in seconds, kicking the gun Luca had been reaching for across the room and pressing his own to Luca's temple. I told you, Adrian said, his voice ice. Don't touch her. Luca was on his knees, blood seeping through his fingers, his face pale. You shot me. You actually shot me. You're lucky that's all I did. Adrian glanced at Arya. You okay? She nodded, her breath coming in short gasps. Yeah, I'm okay. Good. He looked back at Luca. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me everything. Who you're working for, where the shipments are going, every name on your payroll. And if I even think you're lying, I'm going to put the next bullet somewhere a lot more permanent. I'm not telling you anything. Adrian cocked the gun. Wrong answer. Wait, Luca's voice cracked. Wait, okay, I'll talk. Just don't. The door burst open again. 3 men in black tactical gear flooded in, guns raised. Arya's heart stopped. But Adrian didn't flinch, just sighed. Took you long enough. One of the men lowered his weapon. Sorry, boss, traffic. Boss? Arya stared as the men moved to Luca, hauling him to his feet and cuffing his hands behind his back. He was still bleeding, still pale, but the fight had gone out of him. What is this? Luca demanded. Who are these people? Adrian holstered his gun and turned to Arya, his expression softening. Private security, mine. You... She couldn't find the words. You planned this, all of it. I told you, I've been planning this for 3 days. But the meeting, the Volkovs, you said... I said I was meeting with Luca's people. I never said it was a negotiation. He glanced at the men. Take him to the facility. I'll deal with him later. They dragged Luca toward the door. He looked back at Arya, his face twisted with rage and desperation. This isn't over, Arya. You hear me? This isn't... One of the men hit him. Not hard, but enough to shut him up. And then they were gone, the door slamming behind them. The silence was deafening. Arya stood there, her whole body shaking, trying to process what had just happened. Adrian crossed the space between them and pulled her into his arms. She collapsed against him, her fingers clutching his shirt, her breath coming in ragged sobs. It's over, he said quietly. He can't hurt you anymore. You shot him. I did. You could have killed him. I could have, but I didn't. Because you're not the kind of person who wants that on your conscience. She pulled back, looking up at him. How did you know I'd drop when you told me to? I didn't, but I trusted you. That's insane. That's us. Arya laughed, the sound half hysterical, half relieved. Who are you, Adrian? Really? He cupped her face in his hands, his thumb brushing away a tear she didn't know had fallen. Someone who's very good at solving problems, and very bad at walking away from people who matter. I matter? More than you know. He kissed her then, slow and deep, and Arya let herself fall into it. Into him. Into the terrifying, impossible reality that this man, this dangerous, complicated, impossibly protective man, had just upended his entire world to keep her safe. When they finally broke apart, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. Come on, let's get out of here. Where are we going? Somewhere Luca's people can't follow. Somewhere safe. Safer than a compound with armed guards? Much safer. He led her outside where Marcus was waiting by the car. The older man's expression was carefully neutral, but Arya saw the concern in his eyes. Everything all right, sir? It will be. Take us to the city house. Yes, sir. They drove in silence, Arya tucked against Adrian's side, his arm around her shoulders. She should have been exhausted, terrified, traumatized, but all she felt was numb. What's going to happen to him? She asked quietly. To Luca? He's going to answer questions, a lot of them, and then he's going to disappear. You're really going to make him disappear? I'm going to give him a choice. Cooperate and relocate somewhere far away or face the people he's been stealing from. Most people choose the first option. And if he doesn't, Adrian's arm tightened around her. Then he doesn't. But either way, he's out of your life. Permanently. Arya closed her eyes. I should feel guilty for what's happening to him, but I don't. That's because you're finally seeing him for what he is, not who you wanted him to be. And what is he? A coward who used you, who tried to control you, who thought he could own you. Adrian's voice went quiet. You deserve better than that. Do I? He looked down at her, his eyes dark and serious. Yeah, you do. They arrived at another building, this one in the heart of Manhattan, sleek and modern and anonymous. Adrian led her inside, past a doorman who nodded like he'd been expecting them, and into an elevator that required a key card to operate. The penthouse they arrived at was different from his Tribeca place. Smaller, more personal. There were books on the shelves, actual books that looked red. A jacket draped over a chair. A coffee mug on the counter. This is where you actually live, Arya said. Yeah. Why bring me here? Because the other place is for business. This one's mine. And I want you to be safe. Really safe. Arya walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. Behind her, she heard Adrian making a call, his voice low and controlled, giving orders, cleaning up the mess. When he finished, he came to stand beside her. They stayed like that for a long moment, just watching the city breathe. What happens now? Arya asked. Now, you rest. Tomorrow, we figure out the next steps. And after that? Adrian turned to face her. After that, you get your life back. Your apartment, your work, your freedom, all of it. What about you? Do I get to keep you too? His mouth curved. Do you want to? I asked you that this morning. You never really answered. I said you had me for as long as you wanted. And if I want you for a long time. Adrian's expression shifted, something vulnerable and almost uncertain flickering across his face. Then I guess I'm yours. For however long you'll have me. Arya reached up, her hand cupping his jaw. That might be a really long time, Adrian. Good. He kissed her, and this time there was no urgency, no desperation, just them, in the quiet of his home, with the worst behind them and something new, something fragile and terrifying and real, beginning to take shape. When they finally broke apart, Adrian led her to the guest room. Get some sleep, real sleep. I'll be down the hall if you need me. Adrian? Yeah? Thank you for everything. He nodded, his expression soft. Any time. He started to leave, but Arya caught his hand. Wait, don't go. Adrian looked at her, his eyes searching hers. Arya, I don't want to be alone tonight. Please. For a moment he didn't move. Then he nodded, kicked off his shoes, and climbed into bed beside her. Arya curled against him, her head on his chest, his arm wrapped around her shoulders. You're safe, he murmured into her hair. I promise. And for the first time in days, Arya believed it. She woke to sunlight and the smell of coffee. For a moment she forgot where she was, forgot everything that had happened. Then it all came rushing back. Luca. The gun. Adrian's cold, controlled fury. She sat up, her body aching, and found Adrian's side of the bed empty. The sheets were still warm. She got up, padded into the kitchen, and found him at the counter, phone to his ear, already dressed in another impeccable suit. I don't care what he says. He talks or he doesn't walk. Those are his options. A pause. Good. Keep me updated. He hung up, turned, and saw her. His expression softened immediately. Morning. How'd you sleep? Better than I expected. What was that about? Luca, he's cooperating. Arya's stomach twisted. What's he telling you? Everything. Names, shipment routes, financial records. Enough to take down half his operation and everyone connected to it. And then what happens to him? Adrian poured her a cup of coffee, handed it to her. He gets relocated. New identity, new life, somewhere very far from here. He just disappears. He just disappears. Arya took a sip of coffee, trying to wrap her mind around it. It's really over. It's really over. She set the cup down, her hands shaking slightly. I don't know what to do now. I've spent the last 3 days running and hiding and being terrified, and now it's just done. I don't know how to process that. Adrian moved around the counter, his hands settling on her shoulders. You take it one day at a time. You go back to your apartment, back to your work. You rebuild. What if I don't want to go back? Then you don't. You do whatever you want, Arya. That's the point. You're free now. She looked up at him. And you? What are you going to do? Me? Adrian's mouth curved. I'm going to keep doing what I do, solving problems, running my business. And us? What are we? He was quiet for a moment, his eyes searching hers. What do you want us to be? Arya didn't hesitate. Something real, not fake, not pretend, just real. Adrian's hands tightened on her shoulders. Then we're real. No games, no conditions. Just us. You mean that? I don't say things I don't mean. Arya smiled, the first real smile she'd felt in days. Okay. Then we're real. He pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her, and Arya let herself sink into the warmth of him, into the safety, into the impossible, terrifying, beautiful reality that she'd walked into a club 3 days ago to get revenge on her ex, and walked out with something she never expected, something worth keeping. So what now? She asked against his chest. Now, Adrian said, we figure out what normal looks like, together. I don't think you do normal. Then we'll figure out our version of it. Arya pulled back, looking up at him. I like the sound of that. Good, because you're stuck with me now. Promise? Adrian's eyes went dark and serious. Promise. He kissed her, slow and deep, and Arya knew, absolutely knew, that whatever came next, whatever challenges they'd face, whatever complications arose from Adrian's world colliding with hers, they'd face it together. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. 3 weeks passed before Arya felt like she could breathe normally again. 3 weeks of waking up in Adrian's apartment, of coffee in the kitchen while he took calls in his office, of learning the rhythm of his life and trying to figure out where she fit into it. She went back to her apartment on day 4, Adrian insisting Marcus drive her and wait outside while she packed more clothes. The place felt different now, smaller, like a life she'd outgrown without meaning to. She grabbed what she needed and left, and she hadn't been back since. Her clients didn't ask questions when she told them she was working remotely for a while. They just wanted their designs, and she delivered. Late nights at Adrian's dining room table, her laptop glowing in the dark, while he worked in the next room on things he still wouldn't fully explain. She didn't push, not yet, not because some part of her knew that the deeper she dug into his world, the more complicated everything would become. And she wasn't ready for complicated, not when she was still figuring out what simple looked like. On a Tuesday morning, 3.5 weeks after Luca had been dragged out of that upstate house, Adrian walked into the kitchen and set a manila envelope on the counter in front of her. What's this? Closure. Arya looked at the envelope, then at him. I'm going to need more than that. Adrian poured himself coffee, leaned against the counter. Luca's gone. Relocated to somewhere in South America with a new identity and enough money to start over. The Volkovs got what they needed, evidence, names, enough to dismantle his entire network. And you, he nodded at the envelope, you're officially untouchable. Arya opened it with shaking hands. Inside were legal documents, dense with language she didn't fully understand, but the gist was clear. Protection agreements. Immunity. A paper trail that made it abundantly clear she'd been an unwitting pawn, not a participant. How did you do this? I know people. They owe me favors. I called them in. She set the papers down, her throat tight. He's really gone. He's really gone, and he can't come back, ever. The Volkovs made that very clear to him. Arya should have felt relief, should have felt free, and she did mostly. But underneath it was something else, something that felt uncomfortably like guilt. You okay? Adrian asked. I don't know. I should be happy, right? This is what I wanted. But I keep thinking about how his whole life just ended. Because of me. Because of him, Adrian corrected. He made the choices that got him here. You were just the catalyst. That doesn't make me feel better. Adrian set his coffee down and moved closer, his hands settling on her shoulders. You know what I've learned? People like Luca, they don't change. They just get better at hiding. If it wasn't you, it would have been someone else. Eventually, he would have pushed too far, taken too much, and it would have ended the same way. You didn't destroy his life, Arya. You just expedited the inevitable. She wanted to believe him, wanted to accept that none of this was her fault, but the weight of it still sat heavy in her chest. I think I need to talk to someone, she said quietly. Like a therapist, someone who can help me process all of this. Adrian nodded. I'll get you a name, someone good, someone discreet. You know therapists? I know everyone. She laughed, the sound shaky. Of course you do. He kissed her forehead, gentle and deliberate. You're going to be okay. I promise. You keep making promises you can't control, and I keep keeping them anyway. Arya looked up at him, at this man who'd stormed into her life with all the subtlety of a hurricane and somehow made her feel safer than she'd ever felt before. What about you? Are you okay? Adrian's expression shifted, something guarded sliding into place. I'm fine. That's not an answer. It's the one you're getting. She stepped back, crossing her arms. No, you don't get to do that. You don't get to demand I talk about everything and then shut me out when I ask about you. Arya, I'm serious, Adrian. If this is going to work, if we're going to work, you have to let me in. At least a little. He was quiet for a long moment, his jaw tight. Then he exhaled, the sound rough. You want to know if I'm okay? Honestly, I don't know. I've spent the last 3 weeks dismantling a criminal network, making deals with people who'd kill me if they thought it was profitable, and lying awake every night wondering if I did enough to keep you safe. So, no, I'm probably not okay. But I will be. Eventually. Arya's chest ached. She moved closer, her hands settling on his chest. You don't have to do it alone. Whatever this is, whatever you're dealing with, I'm here. You don't want to be part of this, Arya, trust me. Maybe not, but I want to be part of you, and you come with this. So I guess I'm stuck with both. Adrian's hands came up to cup her face, his thumbs brushing across her cheekbones. You're too good for this life. Probably, but I'm choosing it anyway. He kissed her then, slow and deep, and Arya felt something shift between them, something that felt less like pretending and more like permanence. When they broke apart, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. I have to go to Chicago for a few days, business. I want you to come with me. Chicago? Yeah, there's a situation I need to handle in person. It's mostly meetings, nothing dangerous, but I don't want to leave you here alone. I'm not a child, Adrian. I can take care of myself. I know, but humor me anyway. Arya studied his expression, saw the tension in his jaw, the worry in his eyes. The situation. Is it connected to Luca? Tangentially, one of his associates is trying to make a move. I need to shut it down before it becomes a problem. And you need me there because I don't trust anyone else to keep you safe. And because I'm selfish, and I don't want to spend 3 days away from you. Arya's heart did something complicated in her chest. When do we leave? Tomorrow morning. Then I guess I'm packing. The flight to Chicago was quiet. Adrian worked on his laptop the entire time, his expression focused and unreadable. Arya tried to read but couldn't concentrate. Her mind kept circling back to the envelope, to Luca, to the fact that her entire life had been upended in less than a month. They landed at noon and went straight to a hotel, one of those massive, luxurious places downtown that charged more per night than Arya made in a week. Adrian checked them in under a name that wasn't his, and they took the elevator to a suite on the 40th floor. "Make yourself comfortable," Adrian said, already pulling out his phone. "I have a meeting at 3. I'll be back by 6. Can I come?" "No." "Why not?" "Because these aren't the kind of meetings where you bring guests." Arya crossed her arms. "So what am I supposed to do? Sit here and wait?" "Explore the city, shop, order room service, whatever you want. Just stay in public places and keep your phone on." "Adrian." "Please, Arya. Just this once, don't fight me on this." There was something in his voice, something tight and almost desperate, that made her relent. "Fine, but you owe me an explanation when you get back." "Deal." He kissed her, quick and hard, and then he was gone. Arya stood in the middle of the suite, alone and restless, and tried to figure out what to do with herself. She ended up wandering the city, walking along the river, stopping in shops she couldn't afford, and thinking about everything that had led her here. A month ago, she'd been in a relationship with a man she thought she knew. She'd had a routine, a plan, a life that made sense. And now? Now she was in Chicago with a man she barely understood, hiding from threats she couldn't see, trying to build something real out of a foundation made of lies. It should have terrified her. And it did sometimes. But mostly, it just felt right. She made it back to the hotel by 5:30, ordered pasta from room service, and was halfway through a glass of wine when Adrian walked in. He looked tired. More than tired. Worn down in a way she'd never seen before. "How'd it go?" she asked. Adrian shrugged off his jacket, loosened his tie. "It went?" "That's vague." "That's accurate." He poured himself a drink, whiskey, neat, and downed half of it in one swallow. The associate agreed to back off, for now. What does "for now" mean? "It means we bought ourselves some time, but this isn't over, not yet." Arya set her wine down. "Adrian, what aren't you telling me?" He was quiet for a long time, staring into his glass. Then he said, "Luca wasn't the only one involved in this. There are bigger players, people with more resources, more reach, and some of them aren't happy about the way things played out." "Are we in danger?" "Not immediate danger, but it's complicated." "Stop saying that. Stop hiding things from me. If we're in this together, I need to know what we're dealing with." Adrian looked at her, his expression raw. "You want the truth? Fine. There are 3 organizations that want the information on that hard drive. The Volkovs got some of it, but not all. The rest is leverage. Insurance. The only reason they're not coming after you is because they know I have it, and they know I'll use it if they push." Arya's blood went cold. "So we're not safe, not really. We're as safe as we can be. But in this world, safety is conditional. It's a negotiation, and I'm very good at negotiating." "That's not reassuring." "It's the truth." Arya stood, her hands shaking. "So what do we do? Just keep living like this? Always looking over our shoulders? Always waiting for the next threat?" "For now, yes. Until I can neutralize the remaining players." "And how long will that take?" "I don't know. Months, maybe longer." She turned away, her throat tight. "This is insane. All of it. I can't live like this, Adrian. I can't spend the rest of my life waiting for someone to come after me." "You won't have to. I'll fix this. I promise." "Stop making promises you can't keep." The words came out sharper than she intended. Adrian flinched, just slightly, and Arya felt a pang of guilt. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be the person who's okay with all of this." Adrian set his glass down and crossed the space between them. "You don't have to be okay with it. You just have to trust that I'll keep you safe." "I do trust you, but I also need to be able to trust myself. And right now, I don't." He pulled her into his arms, his hand in her hair, his breath warm against her temple. "Then we'll figure it out, together, one day at a time." Arya closed her eyes, letting herself sink into the warmth of him. "What if this doesn't work? What if we can't make this normal?" "Then we'll make it work anyway. Because I'm not losing you, Arya. Not after everything. She pulled back, looking up at him. You really mean that? I really mean that. Even if it's messy and complicated and dangerous? Especially then. Arya kissed him, and for a moment, everything else fell away. The threats, the uncertainty, the fear. There was just them, in a hotel room in Chicago, holding on to each other like they were the only solid thing in a world that kept shifting. When they finally broke apart, Adrian brushed a strand of hair from her face. Come on, let's get out of here. Where are we going? Anywhere you want. Dinner, a walk, whatever you need. I need normal, just for one night. Adrian smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him all day. Normal, I can do. They ended up at a small Italian restaurant tucked into a side street, the kind of place with red checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles. It was quiet, intimate, and blissfully ordinary. Over pasta and wine, they talked about everything except the mess they were in. Arya told him about her first design job, the nightmare client who'd demanded 17 revisions and then refused to pay. Adrian told her about the time he'd tried to learn to cook and nearly burned down his kitchen. It was easy, comfortable, real. I could get used to this, Arya said, twirling pasta on her fork. Used to what? This. Us. Normal. Adrian's expression softened. Me too. You mean that? I don't say things I don't mean. Arya smiled. You keep saying that. Because it's true. After dinner, they walked along the river, the city lights reflecting on the water. Adrian's hand was warm in hers, his presence steady and grounding. Can I ask you something? Arya said. Depends on the question. Why me? You could have walked away that night at the club, could have said no when I asked you to kiss me, but you didn't. Why? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Because you looked at me like I was just a guy at a bar, not someone you needed something from, not someone you were afraid of. Just a guy. And I liked that. I liked being seen as something other than what I am. And what are you? Dangerous, controlling, someone who solves problems with methods most people would call unforgivable. He looked at her. But when you look at me, I don't see judgment. I don't see fear. I just see you. And that's rare. Arya's chest ached. You're not as bad as you think you are. You don't know what I've done. Maybe not. But I know who you are with me. And that's enough. Adrian stopped walking, turned to face her. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. He kissed her, slow and deliberate, and Arya felt something click into place, something that felt less like falling and more like landing. They flew back to New York 2 days later. The meeting in Chicago had gone as well as it could, Adrian said. The associate had backed off. The threats had been neutralized. For now. Always for now. Never for good. But Arya was learning to live with that. Learning to accept that this life, Adrian's life, their life, came with uncertainty. That safety was conditional. That normal was a moving target. She moved into his apartment officially on a rainy Thursday afternoon, her last boxes from Brooklyn stacked in the guest room that she still hadn't used. Adrian helped her unpack, folding clothes and organizing books, and Arya watched him with something that felt dangerously close to love. You don't have to do this, she said. I can unpack on my own. I know, but I want to. Why? He looked at her, his expression serious. Because you're staying, really staying, and I want to make sure you know this is your home too. Arya's throat tightened. You mean that? I don't say things I don't mean. She laughed, the sound watery. You really need a new line. Why? That one works. They finished unpacking, ordered takeout, and spent the evening on the couch, tangled together, watching a movie neither of them paid attention to. And for the first time since that night at Onyx, Arya felt like she could breathe. 2 months after Luca disappeared, Arya got a call from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Silence. Then quiet and broken. Arya. Her blood went cold. Luca? Don't hang up, please. She should have. Should have ended the call immediately and told Adrian, but something in his voice stopped her. What do you want? I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I know it doesn't change anything, but I needed you to know. Arya's hand tightened on the phone. You had someone follow me. You threatened me. You tried to drag me out of a house at gunpoint. And now you're sorry? I was desperate and scared, and I made terrible choices. But I never wanted to hurt you, Arya. I swear. You did hurt me. You used me. I know. And I have to live with that. He exhaled, the sound shaky. I'm calling because I wanted you to know that you're free. Really free. I made a deal. With the Volkovs, with Adrian, with everyone. I gave them everything they wanted, and in exchange they agreed to leave you alone. Forever. Arya's chest tightened. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve better than me. You always did. And I hope you find it. With him or with someone else. Just be happy, Arya. That's all I want. The line went dead. Arya sat there for a long time, staring at her phone, trying to process what she'd just heard. Then she stood, walked to Adrian's office, and knocked. Yeah? She pushed the door open. Adrian was at his desk, surrounded by papers and laptops, his expression focused. He looked up when she entered. You okay? Luca called? Adrian's expression went cold. When? Just now. He wanted to apologize, and to tell me that he made a deal to leave me alone, forever. He did. 3 weeks ago. I didn't tell you because I didn't think you needed to hear from him again. You knew he'd call. I suspected. He asked permission first. Arya stared at him. Permission? Part of the deal. He gets to start over, but only if he follows the rules. One of those rules was no contact unless I approved it. And you approved this? I thought maybe you needed closure, real closure, not just him disappearing into thin air. Arya's throat tightened. You were right. I did need it. Adrian stood, crossed the space between them, and pulled her into his arms. It's over now. All of it. He's gone, the threats are gone, and you're safe. Really, truly safe. And us? What are we? Adrian pulled back, his hands cupping her face. We're whatever you want us to be. Arya didn't hesitate. I want us to be real, permanent, no conditions, no timelines, just us. Then that's what we are. He kissed her, and Arya felt the last piece of the old life fall away. The life where she'd been someone's girlfriend, someone's pawn, someone's afterthought. This was different. This was hers. Built on honesty and risk and the terrifying, beautiful choice to stay even when leaving would have been easier. 6 months later, Arya stood in Adrian's kitchen, their kitchen, making coffee while he took a call in the next room. She'd started taking on bigger clients, rebuilding her portfolio, creating work she was proud of. Adrian had stepped back from some of his more dangerous dealings, focusing on legitimate business ventures that didn't require him to negotiate with criminals. It wasn't perfect. There were still hard conversations, still moments when his world collided with hers in ways that felt impossible. But they made it work, because they chose to. Every single day. When Adrian walked in, he wrapped his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. Morning. Morning. She turned in his arms, looking up at him. What was the call? Nothing important, just closing out the last of the Vance Industries mess. It's really over? It's really over. Arya smiled, the weight of the last year finally lifting. So what do we do now? Adrian's mouth curved. Whatever we want. Travel, build something, stay here and drink coffee every morning. I don't care as long as you're with me. That's a pretty big commitment. I'm aware. You sure you're ready for that? Adrian kissed her, slow and deliberate. I've been ready since the night you asked me to kiss you. Everything since then has just been catching up. Arya laughed, the sound light and free. Then I guess we're doing this. We're doing this. And as the morning light streamed through the windows, painting everything in shades of gold, Arya realized something. She'd spent so long trying to fit into someone else's life, trying to be what they needed, that she'd forgotten what it felt like to just be herself. But here, with Adrian, she didn't have to be anything other than who she was. Messy and complicated and still figuring things out. And he loved her anyway. Not in spite of it, but because of it. That 10-second kiss in a crowded club had changed everything. It had ended one life and started another. And while the path forward was uncertain, while there would be challenges and complications and moments when she questioned everything, Arya knew one thing for sure. She was exactly where she was supposed to be, with a man who'd promised to keep her safe and actually meant it, with a life she'd chosen, not one she'd settled for, with a future that was hers to shape. And that, she thought as Adrian pulled her close and kissed her again, was more than enough.